Silence.
Check.
Gavel.
Is that good, Owen? That's good. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our December 20th meeting. It's good to see everyone. I'd like to start with a Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, just so everyone's clear, we have exit signs in the rear and to my right. In case of an emergency, please do not use the elevator. And I will start with a roll call vote. Councilor Chericello?
Good evening.
Is Councilor Spencer on?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Good evening, Councilor Spencer.
Good evening.
Councilor Katsoukaris?
Good evening.
Councilor Flood? Good evening. Councilor Weatherby?
Good evening.
Councilor Foote?
Good evening.
And good evening from the chair seat. I'll entertain a motion to open public forum.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
So we have a motion to open public by Councilor Katsoukaris, seconded by Councilor Foote. Any discussion?
Gold.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Just a reminder to everyone, please use your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Stephen Scare, 111 East Hobart Street in Nashua. With some friends, I paid to put up the billboard message promoting Abigail Shrier's Irreversible Damage. And judging by the feedback that I have, both the book and my intentions were misunderstood. Two excerpts from the book. Gender dysphoria, formerly known as gender identity disorder, is characterized by a severe and persistent discomfort in one's biological sex. It typically begins in early childhood, ages 2 to 4, though it may grow more severe in adolescence. But in most cases, nearly 70%, childhood gender dysphoria resolves. Historically, it affected a tiny sliver of the population, roughly 0.01%, and almost exclusively boys. Before 2012, in fact, there were no scientific literature on girls aged 11 to 21 ever having developed gender dysphoria at all. In the last decade, this has all changed dramatically. The Western world has seen a sudden surge of adolescents claiming to have gender dysphoria and self-identifying as transgender. For the first time in medical history, natal girls are not only present among those so identifying, they constitute the majority. The phenomenon sweeping teenage girls is different. It originates not in the traditional gender dysphoria, but in videos found on the internet. It represents mimicry inspired by internet gurus, a pledge taken with girlfriends. For these girls, trans identification offers freedom from anxiety's relentless pursuit. It satisfies the deepest need for acceptance, the thrill of transgression, the seductive lilt of belonging. Now, since that book was published, England, Sweden, and Finland have begun strictly regulating puberty blockers, hormones, and surgeries, and recognizing this as a social phenomenon. Finland released a policy statement noting that these treatments are potentially fraught with extensive and irreversible adverse consequences, such as cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, infertility, increased cancer risk, and thrombosis. This makes it challenging for the minors or their guardians to be in a position of an informed stance regarding these treatments. I put up the billboard message to promote an important resource so that parents can make informed decisions about treatments for their children's gender dysphoria, and I'm happy to have a civil conversation with everyone. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
All right. Hi, good evening. Just a reminder, name and address for the record.
Certainly. My name is Nancy Francis. I'm from 4 Gulf Road here in Derry, and I'm back tonight to report on the results of the 6th annual Pantry Plunge. The plunge was held Saturday, December 10th at noon at Galleons Beach at our own Beaver Lake. We had 68 intrepid plungers this year.
Wow.
I believe it was our coldest plunge to date.
Ooh.
The wind was a challenge, but it was no match for the courage shown by the participants, new participants, and returning plungers alike. I applaud each and every person who took to the water to raise money for the FBC Community Food Pantry and I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart.
How much did you
But it
raise?
takes more than plungers to make this a successful event. I'd like to thank all our onshore volunteers, our cleanup crew, our DJ, Ben Hillman, Beaver Lake Improvement Association, who once again handled parking, and to everyone who hosted a lawn sign. I'd also, of course, like to thank our very many donors. As I mentioned, there's no amount too small to donate. There's also no amount too large. And it's never too late to donate. Thanks also go to our business sponsors, Blue Seal Feeds, Daydreaming Brewery, Bentley Chevrolet, NSAFE LLC, Outdoor Pride, Nutfield Cooperative Preschool, Ahern Nichols Hersey and Butterfield Family Dentistry, and of course, Farmer Phil and the whole J&F Farm community. The event is also not possible without the assistance of Dairy Fire, Dairy Parks and Rec, Dairy Public Works. This event couldn't happen without you, and I thank you. We also had a strong media presence this year thanks to our webmaster, Rob Harris, social media coordinator, Judy Strakalitis. Big thanks to Julie Huss at the Dairy News and Michael Cousinow at the Union Leader for their extensive and colorful coverage. The Nutfield News and WMUR also had a hand in building the excitement. Pinkerton Academy girls basketball team and the Leadership Council of Athletics, both under Lainey Buskey's leadership, brought another strong showing of Astros to this event. They also brought Headmaster Timothy Powers. The exciting part of this event is seeing the community put aside comfort to help our hungry neighbors. Each year, this event raises money for the FBC Community Food Pantry. The food pantry's been fighting hunger in our area for over 30 years. It is a fight that is fought with funding and awareness. We at the Pantry Plunge are happy to help and are so grateful to all who took part in this event, from plunger to donor to our extremely talented photographer,
How much did
Doug Rapp.
How much did you raise?
Well, we're getting there, Phyllis.
Okay, can't wait.
This continues to be a successful, thank you, a successful event because it is a community event. This year's total is approaching 21,000.
Wow.
There's still time to donate. Go to pantryplunge.org to donate and join our cause. And mark your calendars for Saturday, December 9th, 2023 for the 7th
Oh.
Pantry Plunge.
Congratulations, that's wonderful. Yay! Woo! Very good.
Good evening, Steve Trefethan, real estate owner, 44 West Broadway, 44 West Broadway. A couple things, is it on? Oh, there you go, Steve Trefethan, 44 West Broadway, realtor downtown. I guess some of this is kind of a laundry list for Dave, so, since he's got his pen out. I don't know if you're removing snow off of Broadway this year. I don't think we got to it last year. Most of the times, the last 2 to 3, 4 town managers normally have to send the highway department an email that just says, please keep the snow off of Broadway. No? We're not doing that no more? Okay, good. Just thought I'd see that because I didn't see any. I know we haven't had snow, thank God. It's only a couple months left, great. But I just thought I'd mention that. Also, the Christmas lights, since if you do send them an email, I keep forgetting. I just drove by Rigatoni's. They've been out for like 3-4 weeks now.
I just got to step in for the record. I mean,
Go ahead.
facts are important. Our town employees clean every road to the
No,
best
this is
of their
downtown,
ability.
the sidewalks, Josh.
Yeah, they do a good job. They get there when they can. And our sidewalks are clear.
Well, that's not true, but there's a couple of years they couldn't get there.
If it's ever untrue, please send me a picture and we'll get
I'll
on
be
top
glad
of
to,
it.
but I just, normally you send them an email, they do it. They do a good job, and they got plenty of help.
Thank you.
But
Sorry, please, we'll give him extra time. I usually don't interrupt, but
Well, it's not,
gotta
okay,
stop
it's
it.
not true, but I'll send you pictures next time. There's
you.
times we don't, I'm not, hey, you know what, I clean my own sidewalk, but it doesn't, whatever, I will send you pictures.
thank you.
All right, and also, the lights, I said, like, in front of Rigatoni's, the Christmas lights have been out for a while, for like a couple, 3 weeks, so maybe I should send them something. I keep forgetting, I don't see the lights, I'm not around at night in front of the store. And then also, Dave, there's a tree out in 40 West Broadway. I know we talked about a couple of years. I was going to send you something last year and forgot. It's been out of that planter for like 3 years now. Maybe we can get it. All the rest of Broadway looks nice with the trees, but that tree was kind of disappeared, like broke right after they planted it, maybe the next year or something. I don't know what happened to it. We talked about this before, Dave, that there's a planter and a trash bin in between 40 West Broadway and 44 West Broadway. So the guy who does the little strip that comes down the sidewalk sometimes has to go around that planter and that trash bin. And once or twice, once I can remember, it might have been twice, he clips our canopy. It's back on our property, but he has to go around that and kind of goes under the canopy, which is not so bad. But when the snow's not plowed off the sidewalk, Josh, sometimes the machine goes up and touches it, whatever. So if you want, I offered this once, I have a space in between my two buildings, which is right there. If you move it by my canopy, it should be on then everybody can go by, and I'm okay with that.
You have my email, right?
I do, yeah. I keep forgetting. I would keep forgetting. I was going to send it to you. And then, and that's it. So, and then the rest is Merry Christmas. Everybody have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Tom Dolan. I'm a resident of Londonderry. I'm here to talk to you about two issues very briefly. One is Exit 4A, which is now underway. Just to make it clear, by the way, I was a counselor for 6 terms in Londonderry, and now I'm in my 3rd term as a state rep. And I serve with Phyllis. The issue with Exit 4A that I wanted to bring up is that there is some talk about inflating the cost to both Derry and Londonderry. I know that we had legal advice and made a commitment to our taxpayers, like you did, that there wouldn't be a penny over $5 million spent by each community. So I just want to remind you that that's in place. The DOT knows that, and I hope you hold the line on that expenditure. Secondly, the rail trail. I know you have a proposal in front of you to change the configuration of the so-called tunnel part of the rail trail. I would encourage you, well, let me first say that as a counselor, in the last few years, the 2 most important topics brought to my attention was cut our taxes and keep building the rail trail because we love it. That's from Londonderry's standpoint. I think that if you change the configuration, like what's being proposed, changing from the tunnel configuration to a different solution, could cost a lot of time in legal expenditures, because I understand there are groups that are poised to bring a suit against. This is more of a Derry issue right now, but it really affects Londonderry also, because if that happens, then I would estimate we're probably looking at a 2 to 3 year delay due to legal challenges, and that would be a sad scenario for both communities. That this asset is loved so much by our folks that to delay it for that reason would not be a good thing. So I want to thank you all for your service. I know how hard it is to serve on these boards, and especially at night when you'd rather be with your kids or your spouses. So I thank you for your service, and good luck.
Thank you.
I don't usually get involved.
Okay.
Excuse me, back and forth with, I want to understand your position, because you said you want us to stick with the tunnel configuration.
Right.
Okay, because what DOT is telling us is that the alternate configuration will cause a delay.
Let's, okay.
So I want to make sure I understand your position and you're explaining it correctly.
It's my understanding, and there might be speakers behind me that will speak to this, but it's my understanding that changing the current configuration will cause the delay, and will cause the delay.
There's 2 current configurations is what the issue is.
Will cause the delay because of legal intervention, not so much because of the construction.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll just ask the council, and I know it's hard for me because I just broke my own rule to begin with.
Okay.
But we have an excellent presentation that, and we'll have plenty of opportunity to ask tough questions.
Okay.
And hopefully get to the bottom
wanted
of
to
it. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Mark Flatus, Linwood Drive. First and foremost, I wanted to wish us all Merry Christmas and Happy New Year and so on.
Thank you.
Going forward into '23, Derry taxpayers are going to be faced with what appears to be some tough decisions. First of all, a new school possibly being built, one possibly being closed. The Abbott Court development, which, as you guys know, is a hot-buttoned issue where we just spent $800,000. And then there's 4A. And now I'm hearing talk that there may be need for a new police station. What I would ask is, going into '23, can we take a look at upfront how this is going to impact the taxpayers with all this different stuff, where we think it's going to end? Because if we bond for the parking garage, bond for the new fire station, bond for the schools, bond for the new police station, it's just one cost after another, and a bond's nothing more than a tax increase. So I would ask that in '23, that we really look at that aggressively to keep taxes low for our residents, to keep them coming here. And once again, I wish us all Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Is this on?
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. For the record, my name's Regina Birdsell. I'm the state senator for District 19, which encompasses the towns of Derry, Hampstead, and Windham. And I live at 24 Larson Drive in Hampstead. I'm here basically on the 4A issue. As the former chair of transportation, I felt that it's coming to a head, and I just wanted to try and bring some clarity to the situation. I want people to understand that this is going to be a multi-use rail trail. I had many conversations with DOT. They did receive the letter from the rail trail saying that they were okay with the switchback design. So with that, the DOT went ahead, and with that agreement, the DOT went ahead and designed and engineered the switchback. So 18 months later, fast forward 18 months later, now they're talking about trying to turn it into a tunnel. This is going to cost an additional at least $1 million.
Yeah.
It's also going to extend probably the project, which I don't know if anyone's thought how this is going to impact Woodmont Commons and what Woodmont Commons is going to do if their project is extended. So, in speaking with Chief Garone before he passed away, he and I had a discussion about the switchback versus the rail versus the tunnel. He was vehemently against the tunnel. He did not think that he had the manpower to either maintain it or to keep it safe for people. And one thing I wanted let people know, the time to have made any changes to the rail trail would have been during the 10-year plan. The second year of every legislature session, we do the 10-year plan. No state rep came into I can't speak for the House, but my understanding is no one came into the House to try and make changes or amend it, and I know for a fact no one came into the state Senate hearing on the 10-year plan to try and make changes. I have spoken with the new chair of transportation in the Senate and the vice chair, and that is a bipartisan issue because we have a Republican in the chair and we have a Democrat, and neither one of them are in favor of putting $1 million additional on the taxpayers in New Hampshire. So I am just here trying to give some clarity to what I believe is happening, and also keep in mind that this is, to me, this is like having someone design your house. You pay someone to design your house. They design it. You don't like the design. You're not going to
Just for clarification, I'd like to
extend the
you.
Senator's
Any
time
discussion?
for a couple more seconds here.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, continue, sorry.
the only, so if you decide you want to change that design, that redesign is going to be on you versus the architect or the engineer who designed it. And this is how I see it. So support DOT's position, and I support the switchback. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Christmas.
Same to you.
Good evening.
Evening.
She doesn't.
Mark Connors, 5 Cabot Drive. I was coming up here primarily tonight to speak to you about the safety on the rail trail and actually share some good news. There's going to be plenty of speakers talking about the tunnel issue. Wanted to let you all know that Derry Rail Trail remains focused on building the best trail and the safest trail in Derry and maintaining that. And we have a great partnership with the town, and I'm sad that we are in the situation we're in. What I wanted to announce today is that the citizens of Derry, the Alexander Eastman Foundation, the Derry Rail Trail Alliance actually have 2 sets of safety beacons on their way to the DPW. Mr. Karen can confirm this. We've been working with the town. We'll be putting safety beacons at the very dangerous crossing at Broadway and at South Avenue, another dangerous crossing, at a cost of $20,000 that the citizens of Derry and Derry Rail Trail Alliance are putting up in order to have safety on our trail. So we're going to continue to work for the safest trail. I really hope that the councilors who are actually tasked with the safety of Derry follow that suit at no cost to Derry, despite the previous speaker. The tunnel will go in. Many misinformation pieces in what the senator just said. I'm very sad, quite honestly, that several of our elected officials still continue to be confused or spreading the wrong information. The only approved plan by the feds is the tunnel. That is the one that has been in the plan. 10-year plan, Gassett plan. I was here. I spoke to Councilor Stevens as they went through that. The only plan in the 10-year plan is the tunnel. This alternate came up only based on the DOT doing it. It has not been approved by the feds. It has not even been sent to the feds. The first speaker, the first person who's the elected official, the state rep from Londonderry, is correct. The real delays are going to be coming if the plan goes forward versus what has already been approved, folks. The DOT did not follow their own process. Senator Birdsell's also correct. When you go to redesign your house, it should cost you. Well, guess what? You typically don't just let your architect go redesign the house for you and have no say in it. And that is exactly what happened here. We were supposed to have a seat at the table. We would have loved to have our senators and everybody sit around the table as we were promised. As we were promised by DOT early in the design phase, we were supposed to have a seat at the table to help design the best trail. That was promised by VHB when the letter that the senator mentioned was sent to VHB. That letter was never sent to the DOT. The only letter ever sent direct to the DOT, and you all have copies of it, was the letter saying, no, the alternative plan is not what we want. So the facts need to get straightened out, folks. The elected officials, it is sad and scary to me that we have such misinformation among those who are supposed to be leading our town and our state. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, councilors. Jody Nelson, 7 Nut Meadow Lane. I speak here this evening on the topic of the rail trail passageway beneath the new 4A access road planned. The rail trail is a multi-use trail. It's intended to be used by walkers, joggers, runners, mothers pushing carriages, parents with children riding bikes with training wheels, rollerbladers, skateboarders, dog walkers, bikers. The list can go on. The DOT plan of the switchback as well as the tunnel both have a plan to maintain a safe path under the new 4A access road. During the concept phase, both the tunnel option as well as the alternate plan of the switchback were met with no objections from the town or the Derry Rail Trail Alliance. 18 months later, the Derry Rail Trail Alliance changed their mind, and here we are today. I understand that you are considering a vote on the topic of whether to proceed with the switchback option or support a change to the 4A project planned of a tunnel option. Again, both options provide a safe pathway under the 4A access road. I would like to ask you to make sure to consider the following in making your decision this evening. Have you considered that with the switchback, the grading of the 4A access road will be safer for tens of thousands of vehicles using the access road on a daily basis? This is particularly important to consider. As you know, we have inclement weather, icing and snow for at least 6 months out of the year. For reference, we would be able to go from a road grading that would be reflective of the grading you see at best at Rockingham Road, with the tunnel to a grading like we see at Folsom Road at Franklin Street to Claremont Ave with the switchback. Also, have you considered, should you agree to the tunnel option, the project will be significantly delayed by at least a year and will cause a negative impact from an economic development standpoint? Please consider not only what the actual cost of the infrastructure of the tunnel project will be, but also consider opportunity costs that will negatively impact our town. There is potential for big losses in interests of companies who are looking to call Derry their home, bringing jobs to Derry residents, increased tax revenue, and employees spending money locally here in Derry. Developers have shown great interest in industrial zone development here in Derry, but with uncertainty about the timeline, it would be prudent for them to explore other options elsewhere, where there is a reliable and predictable timeline in which they can be up and running. I would really hate to see that happen. Even with a call to action by the rail trail activists to contact Derry state representatives, I have seen one email in my legislative email and 0 calls from Derry residents in support of the tunnel option. We have heard from speakers in support of the tunnel at the various public meetings we've heard here in Derry. A significant percentage of them are not from Derry, but other parts of the state or other states. I can tell you that I am getting phone calls and messages and emails from Derry residents about heating assistance, rental help, where to find food kitchens, and other financial help resources. It's no secret how our present economy is creating real hardships for a lot of folks in our community.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
move to extend 30 seconds for the representative.
I'm sorry.
30 more
sorry.
seconds to finish up.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you. Please consider what message you are sending these struggling people before you agree to spending over $1 million of their tax money and losing potential good-paying jobs because of delays. Please also consider what message you are sending to our present business owners who have seen declines in revenues due to the decrease in customer spending if you choose to delay opportunities for many new customers who would be working in Derry, and the increase of motorists who find it easier to get to these businesses to grab coffee, lunch, dog food, groceries, hockey equipment, etc. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I am Kathy McDonald, 17 Sylvester Circle, and I do live in Derry. We've all heard a lot over the past few weeks about the tunnel, a lot for, but I don't recall any valid arguments. I know there are arguments tonight, but up until tonight, against it. The facts are the approved tunnel is less costly for Derry, easier to maintain, safer, and as you have all witnessed, supported by the citizens of the town of Derry. What's been motivating me to support the tunnel is something personal. When I was a teenager, my younger sister had a group of friends. They would go to a store down the street because it sold what all kids love, lots of candy. They crossed the same 2-lane street I crossed over and over when I was their age. One day, as 2 of her friends watched, another never made it across to the other side. David lived next door with his parents in one house and his grandparents in the next. That family, my sister, and her young friends were forced to deal with the loss of a son, a grandson, and a playmate. And it's still with me decades later. A couple of years ago, several Derry representatives, some of whom are in this room, were taken on a walk of the area where a 6-lane street crossing will be on the Folsom Road highway connector. There were 2 lanes they had to cross on Folsom Road. The town determined, because of the danger posed for a few minutes to cross that road by a handful of representatives, all adults, a police escort would be provided. Please give your constituents the safety that was afforded for that short time by simply supporting the approved tunnel. This approved tunnel, which costs Derry nothing, will ensure that no child, no mother, no father, no grandparent using it, nobody will be struck by a car or a truck, not for a few minutes, but from the day it's open, day and night, year after year, for decades.
Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Brady Miller and I live at 36 Bedard Ave. I'm here again today to speak about the rail trail. I believe that the spaghetti design is a safety hazard due to the fact that there will be a 90-degree turn and a 180-degree turn. People on bikes could lose control and other people on the trail could be injured because of a cheaper design. The rail trail is one of Derry's greatest features. Every time I went on the trail with my brother or friends, I would feel happy walking on a nice and peaceful trail. And if the spaghetti design is built, I would then realize that because of the spaghetti design, the rail trail will become a safety hazard. The past few meetings I've been to, I've seen many people here talk about the design and how it's dangerous and how we should build the tunnel instead. I'm sure if the tunnel is denied and the spaghetti design is built, a bunch of people will be enraged because it's an unsafe design and everyone who uses the trail wants it to be safe. I want you to think about this question. Would you rather have a little more money, or would you rather have everyone who uses the trail to be safe? Everyone wants the trail to happen, so we hope you can vote yes on the trail so we can have a much safer design. Thank you for listening. Have a good night.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Calvin Philibert Dyer. I live at 3 Little John Court in Derry. Wanted to follow up with what my friend Brady was just saying about the trail. And yeah, so I've lived in Derry, I think 5 years now, and I've been going to the trail ever since I've moved in. And having this Mario Kart idea of a trail, I don't think it's going to end well for a lot of the people that potentially can get injured from it. And if I am correct, I think that Representative Pearson put in a bill for the matter. And yeah, I just want maybe just consider what the trail can do for Derry and prevent more injuries that may happen with the spaghetti trail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kyle Schreiber. I live on 142 Ford Way Extension. Most of my friends have already shared their opinions about this spaghetti trail versus the tunnel for the Derry Rail Trail debacle, and I would like to share mine. To start off, it's a much safer option if you go with, or it's a less safer option if you go with the spaghetti trail. The limited time window to cross is unethical. Multiple different kinds of people with disabilities and elders, children, etc. cross this trail, and if this gets installed, many people may not be able to get to the other side with the limited time. Other reasons why it's not a good decision with just a general presentation of the trail do not look good. In the plans for the spaghetti trail, there we got it. It looks like it was put through a corporate machine with a bunch of moving parts that do not work well together. Besides the spaghetti trail being cheaper, what other pros have we stated? It's certainly not safer. From past meetings, when other citizens ask about the other pros, you brush them off like they don't matter. You take me and my colleagues' words into account and make the best decision for Derry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello.
I'm Robert Francis, 4 Gulf Road in Derry. Several speakers ago, I wasn't planning on saying anything this evening, but several speakers ago, I believe I heard Representative Nelson say that tens of thousands of vehicles would be using the exit 4A ramp a day, and so it was important to have a safer grade for them, which is why apparently the tunnel was a bad idea. I don't know if that tens of thousands number is, I'm assuming it's not hyperbole, but if it's just 10,000 vehicles a day, that averages out to 6.9 vehicles a minute. And I was just trying to imagine people trying to cross 6 lanes of traffic when you have an average of 7 cars a minute going past. And as we all know, we're not getting 7 cars a minute, or wouldn't be at 3 in the morning. So during daylight hours, it'd probably be a lot higher. So I think we should think about that. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Anthony Henry, 5B Maurice Road. So I'm not going to add too much. I think all my friends kind of nailed it in on you. By the way, they did great for their, because they're not into this, I kind of dragged them into it. So you're welcome, by the way. And I see pros and cons to both. I've been trying to do a little research. I definitely don't know too much about it. But from my perspective, tunnel looks a little safer. And if it spends a little more money, well, million's not a little, but if it spends money to make us safer, then it's worth it. I don't know. I know there's a lot that even the rail trail people don't know, probably. There's sides to everything. But from my perspective, I say build the tunnel. But thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Catherine Prudhomme O'Brien. I'm a state representative, and I live on Beacon Hill Road. That's on the Derry-Windham line. There is a tunnel in Windham under Route 93 on that road, and I travel it sometimes. And when I do, I notice that there aren't many people that do so. I want to discuss a few of the things mentioned earlier. Maintenance doesn't seem to be a huge issue for the town of Windham, and there are not homeless people in that tunnel. There's no sign of homeless people in that tunnel. There doesn't seem to be a big problem with that tunnel, and the lighting is not difficult. The first time I heard about the spaghettified, convoluted switchback design was just a year ago. I didn't have an opportunity to imagine that that was even something I would have to be fighting against. I had no idea until I saw it. When I saw it, my first reaction was, what the heck is this? I recently joined my friend. She invited me to go bike riding with her and the group that she's with the Veterans Administration, recreation therapy group. It's very important to her. It's very important to the people that are in that group, and most of them are on recumbent bicycles. I think this switchback design would be a stopping point for people like that who are using that trail. And I've always been in favor of the straight-through tunnel design because I thought that was what the plan would be. During this whole entire situation for the last year, when I first saw this convoluted design, I was trying to find out, how did this happen? Well, there's a lot of reasons for how this happened, but I think that the biggest problem is that the will of the people who use that tunnel was not considered. It wasn't thought about. And I think in this past year we have seen what the will of the people of our community and the people that use this tunnel, this rail trail, what it is. I think the majority of people want the straight passage through, the majority of people who use it, and the majority of the people in this community. And I wish that had been heard early on in the process. We hear that things should have been spoken about early on in the process. Well, that should have been the first thing. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Good evening.
For the record, Steve Pearson, 221 Hampstead Road. I am a state representative. I'm in my third term here, and I am a Pinkerton graduate and a longtime resident of this town. I want to begin actually by thanking Councilor and Representative Katsioukaris for voting for the Rail Trail Act several years ago that made this whole thing possible. So thank you, Representative, for doing that. I also ask, has everyone received and had a chance to read the letter from the Law Office of Wilmer Hale? You were all sent that. I only ask this because the letter touches on 2 points that I know are important to each of you, cost and delay, and I plan to talk about both. My first point concerns a threatening letter sent to the town by the DOT. The DOT knows better than this. The contract Derry and Londonderry has is crystal clear. Both towns have paid their obligation. This was attempted against Londonderry a few years ago, and then town manager Kevin Smith, who actually happens to be in the audience, fought back against this violation of that contract. The DOT cannot do this. You have all received a copy of the contract interpretation from the Law Office of Wilmer Hale in Boston, confirming that fact. Caving to this bogus threat will not only have impacts on Derry's input into this project moving forward, but may have ramifications for Londonderry as well. My second point concerns the potential delays to Part B of the project. The 2019 plan for this exit has already been approved by the feds, 2019 plan. This is the original design that includes the tunnel. The alternative plan has not been approved by the feds. In fact, the feds have not even received the plan yet. The tunnel would have no federal delay as it has already been approved, and this would require a reworking of slope and drain designs by the DOT. 161 properties in Derry have not been acquired for parts B and C. And I will say that again, 161 properties have yet to be acquired by the DOT. We still don't have answers as to how we're going to deal with the police station. Commissioner Cass, the DOT commissioner, when asked by me, admitted that there are multiple things that can delay Part B, not just the rail trail. This project is still in its design phase. Best case scenario, it doesn't even go out to bid until next October, and at the earliest, and construction wouldn't even start until 2025. The interface with the protected Manchester and Lawrence Railroad Historic District has been part of the 4A project from the beginning. This is not a separate item. It was also included in the I-93 transit study.
Motion to extend.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion to extend by Councilor Foote, second by Councilor Katsioukaris. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Continue.
Thank you. This is not a separate item. It was also included in the I-93 transit study as an alternative transportation corridor, as well as being included in what the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission saw. The project manager was specifically asked if this would affect Part A, which is the construction of the exit in Londonderry. She said it would not. Councilors Borden and Spencer were present when this question was answered. The two public hearings that were held at West Runningbrook included the tunnel, as well as the meeting that occurred in this very room. Not until late September of this year did we get a public hearing showing the change. A mere 3 months ago, that was hardly a public hearing. It was more of a public dictation. Near the end of that hearing, the project manager was directly asked if the tunnel was the safer option. She refused to answer the question. She refused to answer the question. That video can be found on Derry TV's website, by the way. They recorded that meeting. I've been a safety professional for over 20 years. I even have an engineering degree in the practice from Oklahoma State University. There are several serious concerns in the design of this unapproved alternative plan. One involves the continuous 5-degree slope for almost 2 football field lengths in one side and 430 feet on the other. The other is the blind entrance when heading south under the bridge. We will have collisions between bicyclists and pedestrians, both of whom have a right to use this trail. We have had several fires under similar bridges, including one substantial one just this past week in Manchester, a fire that required the bridge to be inspected by the DOT. The box tunnel negates these issues. The unapproved alternative plan places the rail trail right next to Shields Brook. That brook is substantially flooded at least 3 times in my lifetime. The proximity of the trail to the brook will cause the trail to be wet, slippery, and potentially undermined when the brook floods. Because of the trail being next to the brook, the trail may not be able to be salted or surface prepped at all. Now we're in a situation where the trail has to be closed in the winter. People snowshoe and cross-country ski on these trails. Speaking of potentially having to close the trail, the unapproved alternative plan will force a crosswalk across 6 lanes of traffic. While there will be attempts to discourage its use, the town cannot remove the crosswalk as it is a requirement by the New Hampshire Division of Historic Resources, as it is in the Manchester and Lawrence Protected Historic District. If the unapproved alternative plan is built and closed in the winter, this will force everyone to use that crosswalk, causing a serious safety hazard as well as traffic delays. All of this can be avoided by building the box tunnel. The crosswalk will not be required if the tunnel is built. This situation is also about fairness. The DOT has built tunnels all over the state, including Windham, Manchester, and even Londonderry. As a matter of fact, Londonderry appears to be getting another tunnel under 28, a 2-lane road. Yet Derry, we cannot get one under a 6-lane road? How is it in every other community this is a method being used, and somehow for Derry it isn't? We need to fight for fairness and for Derry to be treated equally. Speaking of equality, another concern I have about this unapproved alternative is the effect it will have on citizens that use the trail that have mobility issues. Northeast Passage is a program at UNH that promotes empowering individuals with disabilities to pursue and achieve their therapeutic recreation and adaptive sports goals. Just recently received the plan for the alternative and has stated they have serious concerns in its design. This plan will significantly reduce the ability for people with handicaps from using the trail. Imagine pushing or trying to operate a wheelchair-type bike up a continuous grade for 530 feet. That's almost 2 football fields. Yes, the pitch barely meets ADA requirements, but the length of the hills is just way too long. When the federally approved box tunnel is an available option, how can we not stand up for those with mobility issues? At the August meeting with the DOT, a project engineer stated, and I'll quote, "Derry is the spine of the trail network. High usage is expected."
Representative, let's
Yes,
try
sir.
and...
I'm on my last bit.
Thank you.
This is not just about Derry. It's about the network of trails across the state. We will have an impact on Windham, Londonderry, Salem, and Manchester. Derry has already hosted a popular trail race, and we have 2 businesses that exist because of the trail. I don't want to see Derry become a roadblock for activities through this protected district. In closing, I ask that you support the already federally approved tunnel plan. Whatever is constructed will be with us for the next 50 to 100 years. A mistake now will have permanent ramifications, and fixing this later will cost Derry taxpayers millions.
Thank you.
I want to close by saying that it's never the wrong time to do the right thing, and the time to do the right thing is now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Carden, 2 Cunningham Drive. I've been following this project since the mid-'90s, so it's about 25 years. I attended the meeting in 1997 when the Derry Town Council voted the first $5 million bond, and I was very surprised that I was the chairman of the Town Council when we turned it over to the DOT. And I want to talk about money, and I want to talk about delays. This project has been delayed for I don't know how many decades, probably 2 decades. The original cost was $10 million. It is an astronomical $112 million today. It goes up by $4 million a year. So by the time it's done, it's going to be $130 million. The delay of doing the tunnel is not going to make one bit of difference. An extra million, I don't know how much it's going to cost. I've heard $1 million for the tunnel, $900,000 for the tunnel, $600,000 for the tunnel. It's not going to make a bit of difference. The most important thing is to have a safe rail trail that is the cornerstone for economic development here in Derry. Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. Jeff Latimer, president of the Granite State Rail Trail. I'm here tonight on behalf of the board, and just wanted to quickly talk to his points about the economics of the trail. This is going to be a regional trail, so even though it is very important to Derry, it's also going to be the main connector for a network of trails that are going through New England. So we have a regional network that today is already 50% completed, that will someday allow people to ride from, say, southern Connecticut all the way to Vermont and on into Canada and over to New York. The economic benefits that this system will bring will be quite impressive. New Hampshire DOT's own study reports that despite being unconnected, the trails through Windham, Derry, and Londonderry today are already bringing an impact of some $7 million a year from New Hampshire residents and another $1.7 million in economic benefit from out-of-state residents. This is only going to increase. For example, a similar trail that runs from Pennsylvania into Maryland is today bringing in $80 million for the same type of trail that we're building here. So I'd ask you to please consider not just the value of this trail to Derry residents, but also to state residents and also to the Derry business community. And the board of the Granite State Rail Trail respectfully asks that you support the safer, federally approved tunnel for the rail trail. And on a personal note, I'd like to say I've had the honor of working with and riding with in my job as a bike shop owner with many wounded vets, and I've gone on multiple rides across New England. And I can tell you that the grade of 5% that they're looking at for this is the max of the ADA, American with Disabilities Act limits on grades. This is a tough grade for people to get up with without assistance. So I'd ask you to do the right thing and please vote for the tunnel. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
If I could dovetail on Representative Pearson's comments in regards to Northeast Passages,
Where's he from?
Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Wayne Morris, Vice President of the Wyndham Rail Trail Alliance.
From where?
Wyndham.
Wyndham.
Thank you. So I received a letter December 19th from the Northeast Passages, if I could read it quickly, to whom it may concern. Northeast Passage is an adaptive sports and therapeutic recreation organization based out of the University of New Hampshire. We run a wide range of programs for people of all ability levels and ages. One of our most popular adaptive sports programs is our adaptive cycling program. We bring in an assortment of adaptive cycles, recumbent trikes, tandem tricycles, hand cycles, etc., and meet participants at cycling locations around the state. We provide them with the equipment, fitting, and any additional riding support needed. Rail trails are our preferred cycling locations because of the relatively flat grades and lack of vehicles, one of our favorites being a section of the Wyndham Rail Trail. Looking at the proposed plans, I do agree the tunnel plan would probably be the most accessible for adaptive cycles, as it looks to be the most universally designed for any user. The straight path, low grade, and no road crossings all help with this and add to its safety, especially from vehicles. Similar features contribute to why we chose to cycle the section of the trail we do, which is the Wyndham Junction towards Salem. The features of the tunnel that you outlined favor universal design, and we will always advocate for universal design to support use of these projects for people of all abilities. And I think that was handed out, so just to let you know. Thank you. And again, just to reiterate, as a physical therapist for 45 years, I can guarantee you that that 5% grade disenfranchises many, many elderly and many, many handicapped people. You know, and even myself, having health issues over the last few years. I used to be an avid cyclist, many 100-mile rides. At this point, I have issues getting over the pedestrian bridge at 111. That's a 5% grade, and that's only for 200 feet in one direction and probably 100 feet in the other direction. I cannot imagine that I will be able to access that 540-foot, 5% grade with a hairpin turn without getting off my bike. Thank you.
Definitely. Never gets old. Good evening.
Good evening. Richard Tripp, 44 Wyndham Road. A lot of good information tonight. I feel like I'm watching Fox News, though, or CNN News, because I don't know what to believe. I know at the previous meetings, I said, well, I heard one side of the story over and over and over again, and I'm a little, concerned that, I hope that you guys have been talking to the DOT and find out what their side of the story is, because, I know that a lot of people here tonight that are for the tunnel believe that anything else would be, the end of the world. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. I know I'm not the most healthy person in this room either, and I hear people saying, "Well, you're going to be coming down the hill and you're going to have to turn." Well, life's not easy. If you want to do things that challenge you, then you're going to have to adapt and overcome those challenges. We can't make life easy for everyone. I know that might sound like I'm a callous individual, but it's the truth. You have to challenge people, because if you don't, then they'll stop doing things that challenge them. I don't believe that the cutback trail is a bad idea. I think it's a solution. It's a solution that the DOT believes in. It's a solution I believe in. It's something that will allow the town of Derry to get Exit 4A done and move forward and reap some of the economic benefits that we've heard for 40 years, Phyllis. Yep. It's and the other thing is, every time that I hear the story about crossing 6 lanes of traffic, I think to myself, what sane person would try and cross 6 lanes of traffic?
Right.
It's it has the crosswalk there is mandated, but if I was to watch cars going by all the time, I don't think I'd be willing to dash out in the traffic, because my insurance is good, but it's not that good. But anyhow, I don't know what you're going to do. The agenda tonight doesn't say you're going to have a vote on anything, so.
Good luck.
Anyhow, I'm done. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you.
Move to close.
Seeing none, rise online, Mr. Chair.
All right. We have a motion to close in a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming up and sharing your opinions and facts based on your research. Next, we have the consent agenda. We have item 22-136, the approval of the December 6 minutes. I'll accept the motion to accept that.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion by Councilor Katsoukaris and a second by Councilor Foote. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Would anybody be abstaining?
I will be abstaining.
Okay, so
I wasn't here at the last meeting.
we have one abstention. I think I have to, Dave, do I have to do a roll call because Councilor Spencer's online? So let's do a roll call. Councilor Chercello abstains. Councilor Spencer?
Aye.
Councilor Katsoukaris? Councilor Flood?
Yes.
Councilor Weatherby?
Yes.
Councilor Foote?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, so it's 6-0-1. All right, and next, under the chairman's report, we will be discussing and potentially dealing with this issue. So I have been working extremely closely with our town manager, as well as at times our vice chair. And I had asked our town manager to construct kind of a presentation and a timeline. So I'm going to turn it over to Dave and ask him to bring us all through these words. We've heard from you, now you can hear from us.
Okay, thank you. This project, the Exit 4A project, was conceived over 40 years ago with 3 goals as approved in our permit: to provide economic development to Derry, economic development to Londonderry, and to relieve congestion in downtown Derry. At the onset, both Derry and Londonderry committed $5 million for the project, which even in its earliest stages was insufficient to complete the project. The project has languished in the visioning and permitting stage for decades, primarily due to lack of funding. It was about 12 years ago when I was over the town manager in Londonderry then, we were ready to submit a permit to the federal government to receive a record of decision. Federal law prohibits the issuance of a record of decision if there's not a funding source identified for the project. And that is why the project just languished for so long, over so many decades. In 2015, legislative leaders successfully advocated to include the project in the state's 10-year highway plan, which then made the project available for state and federal highway dollars. As part of that, in 2015, the state, through the Governing Council, the town of Derry, the town of Londonderry, entered into an agreement which in substance detailed the following. The towns would be responsible for the project through the permitting phase, which has occurred. NHDOT will assume responsibility for design and construction upon issuance of permits for the project, which has occurred. The agreement reaffirmed the town's commitment of $5 million each. At that time, the project was estimated to cost $53.5 million in 2015. The agreement also provided an opportunity to revisit the agreement upon completion of the permitting process if needed to facilitate completion of the final phases of the project. The agreement also provides for the project and its budget to be reviewed if the costs exceed the estimate to determine and identify additional funding sources. The overall project costs are now all over the map. They're definitely over 53.5. The conservative estimate is 80 million, and it's probably going to get over $100 million before this local project is completed with state and federal resources. To date, NHDOT has not requested a review of budget and financing. After all the federal permits were secured, NHDOT considered the design-build concept of fast-track construction. What that is, as opposed to the typical process where you design the project, you send it up for competitive bid, and then you construct it, they invited 3 firms, groups of firms, which consisted of architects, engineers, and contractors to bid on the project. During that process, one of those 3 competing teams approached the town almost 30 months ago regarding an alternate rail trail crossing through the Exit 4A corridor. That was in June in 2020. And typical in Derry is all of our public works projects are managed and supervised by our Director of Public Works. He is responsible for technical decisions. NHDOT or his representatives reached out to our DPW Director for review. Our director found the alternate to be technically sufficient and advised that the Derry Rail Trail Alliance be consulted on this alternative. The same representative met with DRTA on site to review the alternative. And on June 26, 2020, the Derry Rail Trail Alliance issued a letter to one of the 3 competing firms, clearly stating, we can see the merits of your proposed alternate plan for the crossing and agree that either plan meet our goal of connectivity to the north and safe passage of rail trail users across the new Exit 4A access road. DRTA closed its letter by stating, we are providing this letter to indicate that we have no objections to the alternate plan. 18 months later, on January 3rd, 2022, DRTA issued a second letter, this one to NHDOT, stating their initial letter of June 26, 2020 should be considered null and void. As discussed previously, the Department of Transportation abandoned the design-build process as prohibitively expensive and reverted to the traditional design-bid-build process. To fast-track it, they left a lot of the responsibility to the bidders, one which was securing right-of-way, and the bidders obviously built in some cushion there for risk, which contributed to the significant costs. During the transition from design-build to design-bid-build, NHDOT retained ideas developed during the design-build process which would bring economies to the project without compromising safety. Now, more recently, in a meeting with NHDOT, the town of Londonderry, and Representative Woodmont East, who is responsible for the private development on the east side of 93 by the 4A exit, they requested that exit 4A be opened immediately upon the completion of Contract A. Contract A travels from I-93 to almost the Derry-Londonderry town line, and they want to do that by constructing a temporary outlet on Madden Road. Derry's response was, we would consider that if they can prove to us through engineering studies that the extra traffic would not bring Derry roads into failure. It was quickly realized that that plan was impossible to do. Therefore, the following sequencing was agreed upon. Contract A would commence, which is happening now. At the same time, Contract B continued to final engineering. Contract B, which would be all in Derry from our town line to about where the post office is on Chenito Road, would be constructed simultaneously with private investment at Woodmont East with access from Exit 4A for construction vehicles. The Exit 4A interchange would be open to public traffic upon completion of Contract B. And then after that, Derry would then seek use and ownership of the rail trail bed north of the Exit 4A corridor currently owned by Woodmont East. For the town to complete its multi-use path, it would have to secure that land over which the former railroad operated. That land, again, is held by the owners of Woodmont East. The town received a letter from the NHDOT Commissioner on November 28, 2022, reaffirming the selection of the scenic path by the brook. NHDOT's Director of Project Development also confirmed that a sidewalk is planned along the north side of the corridor, thus requiring an at-grade signalized crossing at the intersection of North High Street and Folsom remain in the project, regardless of the alternate use to provide safe access through the 4A corridor for users of the path. And I just want to reaffirm, there's been a lot of testimony over the last month or so, and what's unfortunately, I think some folks have been misguided in the information provided to them. The question is not whether a tunnel or you have to cross 6 lanes of highway. The question is which crossing away from traffic is best for the community given all of the circumstances. The town's the town again sought clarification from NHDOT recently concerning options for safe passage through the corridor for users of the multi-use path. The commissioner responded that based upon discussions with several elected officials, ramifications will occur. A, there will be an impact to the schedule by at least 6 months and more likely up to a year. B, there is a school of thought that the town should bear responsibility for the additional costs incurred by the redesign and resulting project delay.
No.
The town's 2015 agreement with NHDOT clearly provides for a review of the project to discuss those additional costs. Now, if you look at a synopsis of each alternative, both the tunnel and the scenic brook path provide protected access through the Exit 4A corridor. They also meet ADA compliance. The tunnel has a flatter grade, which we've been told is going to be used by about 1,000 users per day. And there's a flatter grade for the road, which will be used for an estimated 20,000 motorists per day. The more direct route is a tunnel. If you want a rural scenic experience, you prefer the brook path. If you want an urban experience, then you prefer the concrete tunnel. The lower life cycle cost is with the brook path. Now, we've had a lot of testimony about maintenance, and one thing we're responsible for doing when you look at a project is look at life cycle costs with the eventual replacement of the capital structure. So with a tunnel, the town will be responsible for the eventual replacement of 2 structures, with the brook path just 1. There's also lower construction costs associated with the brook path option. Interaction with vehicles, we've measured that based upon the number of interactions with the number of housing units. With the tunnel, there are 24 conflicts from one condominium development on North High Street. With the Brook Path, there are 40, 24 with that condominium development, 3 driveways on North High Street, and there's about 13 units over off of Furland Drive. There's less congestion at the Old Rum Trail, Folsom, North High Street intersection of the Brook Path. The tunnel will result in overall project delay per DOT. And there appears to be more historic significance with the tunnel, although it should be noted that the preliminary design of the tunnel was outside of the original rail bed. Now, as the council is sick of me hearing, there's no bad decisions in life, there are only consequences. So if we understand the consequences, we can move forward on either path. With a scenic trail, the path is about 1,000 feet longer than the tunnel. The portions of the path is in the 50-year flood zone, although NHDOT correctly noted that the current restriction is at the North High Street Bridge, which is currently serviced by a 5-foot wide culvert. That 5-foot wide culvert will be replaced with a 63-foot bridge span, which will span the full width of the stream, thereby removing that constriction. We have a similar situation down on the far end of Schneidel Road at the intersection, almost just a little bit beyond the intersection of 102. With the scenic path, the trail would potentially result in 40 opportunities for interaction with vehicles based upon the number of housing units serviced by roads. The town is responsible for lower life cycle costs, which includes the maintenance and eventual replacement of one structure versus 2. On the tunnel, it's a more direct route with a flatter grade. The construction delay caused by redesign will require Governor and Council approval of amended engineering contracts with redesign to follow. NHDOT has told us to anticipate ledge and high water table in the vicinity of the tunnel. There's a high probability that the bid date will be pushed back into spring of 2024. With late bidding, fully anticipate higher bid prices on an entire contract be work. Now again, the feedback from the DOT commissioner is, frankly, at the state level, with a lot of the elected officials, is that they have committed probably at the end of the day, $100 million in state and federal dollars to sustain local economic development and construct local roads. You don't see that very often around the state. And there's a consent, not only there's a consensus, but there's a strong view at the state level that the state should not be responsible for any delay charge or additional charges. So what might those look like? It's been quoted that the tunnel will cost an additional $770,000. We've been told by the commissioner we have at least a 6-month delay. So if you presume that contract B is valued at $35 million at a 6% annual inflation rate, every month is delayed at an added cost of $175,000. So if you're looking at delays of between 6 and 8 months plus the cost of the tunnel, that's a price tag of about $2 million. So the question before you is, would the town want to use about $2 million in Derry tax dollars for a preference of safe, protected accesses through the corridor? Development at Woodmont East will be delayed, resulting in lost tax revenues, jobs, and economic activity in the region. Redevelop along Folsom Road will be delayed as well. And again, the tunnel route has interactions with 24 units as opposed to 40. And, we don't know what the Governor Council will act once the engineering amendment's there. So, I mean, those are the synopsis of all the facts we found, and the consequences aren't facts, but they're simply our observations. But I would pose to the council is that the question before you is, do we want to look at potentially exposing Derry taxpayers at $2 million in additional costs paid by the local taxpayers for a preference of safe, protected accesses? DOT has committed to providing safe, protected access across the corridor. You have 2 options. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to add a couple of things. I think it's really important to clarify why you're all here and why this whole presentation happened tonight, because that is on me. I called this meeting tonight because way back in the summer at some time at the schools, when the DOT made their presentation, I got up and I asked one question. I caught a lot of hell from a few people for only asking one question. The question I asked was about crosswalks. crosswalks across 6 lanes of traffic. Because for me personally, and sorry if this upsets some of you, that is the one thing, the most important thing that I care about. I was indifferent when it comes to the scenic path or the tunnel. I personally believed that people could make adjustments, slow down, and deal with the scenic tunnel. But I was very worried and continue to be very concerned about the crosswalk across 6 lanes of traffic. I had heard conflicting information that we would have the purview, we could remove those crosswalks once either the tunnel or the scenic path was built. Fast forward to the election, I reached out to my representative, Representative Pearson, and I asked him some questions. And he led me to believe that the tunnel was the only way that that crosswalk could be removed. That to me is my personal, not this council, but my personal motivation. How can we remove that crosswalk? And so what I usually do when so I called a meeting with my vice chair, my town manager, and Representative Pearson. And we asked a bunch of questions. I was not satisfied. I still had more questions. So then I called another meeting, and this was a couple of weeks ago, with those same people as well as the DOT. And we asked more questions. And now the 3 biggest concerns that I had: can the crosswalk be removed? If we go with a tunnel, will there be a cost to the Derry taxpayer? And will there be a delay? We were told that the only way to remove the crosswalk was to have a tunnel, that there would be no cost to the Derry taxpayer with a tunnel, but there would be a delay, possibly up to 1 year. Having done my homework and finally getting those questions answered by people who I believe to be the experts, I felt compelled to bring it to this council so we could finally weigh in. Because for years now, we failed to get to that bottom line. So now I felt like we needed to do it here. Tuesday of this week, a week ago, it was brought to my attention that a letter would possibly be coming from the DOT, from the head of the DOT, correcting what was said to me in that meeting with regards to who would be responsible to pay for that tunnel. And on Thursday, we received that information. So what was said a few different times in that meeting with the DOT to me and Councilor Spencer, and in front of our town manager and Representative Pearson, that there would be no cost, that it would only come down to, can you stomach a delay or not? That is out the window, and now we are being told that there will be a cost to the Derry taxpayer if we decide to vote for that tunnel. And I will tell you this, just so I'm consistent with everyone, and I've been consistent all along, my main concern was the crosswalk. Had I not been told that we would not be charged for doing a tunnel by the DOT, we wouldn't even be talking about this tonight.
Exactly. Yep.
I felt that we had the option to do the tunnel without cost to the Derry citizens. And I felt like it was our duty to weigh in on that. So now everything has changed back to, it's going to cost us if we do the tunnel. It won't cost us if we do the scenic path. There's one more thing that's changed. I'm now being told that regardless of whether we do the tunnel or the scenic path, there will have to be a crosswalk, which infuriates me. So the other thing that I'm still confused about and still have concerns with is this idea of the contract that we signed with Londonderry and the state back in 2015. You guys can do what you want. There is a motion in there. I personally am not ready to vote I feel like now I need to hear from council to see if what DOT is now telling us is correct, or if our contract protects us. I'm also, and I'll be quiet because I should let you guys speak, but I'm also very concerned with, if the cost was 53 million and it's ballooned up, why is the cost ballooned up?
Yeah.
Does it have anything to do with other communities adding tunnels or making sure their needs are met? I don't know. I just want to make sure we're not being dictated to, and I'm really concerned with this crosswalk. My questions are for council. Do we have to pay? Do we 100% have to have a crosswalk? If we do, I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'm voting for the tunnel and charging people extra money.
Right.
I made a promise years ago that I would not spend a dime
Me too.
on this. But I also want to make sure, but if we didn't have to spend a dime, I would be for the tunnel, because I do believe it's safer. So that's my conflict. And that's the history, more about the history of how we got to this point tonight. Because again, we weren't doing anything, as you can remember, a month ago. There was no need to, in my opinion, and nobody else obviously felt compelled to, or they would have asked for me to put it on the agenda. Am I incorrect, or is there anything else to add?
No?
You want me to chime in?
Whoever.
So, a few things I'd like to chime in on. First of all, we're talking about a potential 1-year delay on a project we've waited 35 years for. Doesn't seem like the end of the world to me. With regards to the cost, if DOT was interested in doing this efficiently and at a good cost, they probably would have done it when they widened 93. They could have saved tens of millions of dollars. They didn't. And now we have a $700,000 potential bill that they're not even saying we will charge you for this. There is a school of thought. Where is that school of thought coming from? Who is it? They come to a meeting and they say one thing, and then they send a letter saying something completely different. I don't like the whole thing. I don't like the way DOT has operated through this. I don't think they've been particularly transparent. I don't think they've been particularly communicative. And I should also point out that in the 2015 agreement, there is a clause in that agreement that if DOT is sued, that the towns are on the hook to help defend them.
Right.
So pick your poison.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, do we have any idea how much it's going to cost the Derry taxpayers if this goes through, roughly? What is it going to cost them?
If what goes through, I'm sorry.
Pardon?
If what, the tunnel goes through?
Yeah, if the tunnel goes through or the thing, do we have any idea what the increase in taxes will be?
Well, the number I gave you is predicated upon an 8-month delay, number one. The cost of the tunnel is $770,000, and NHDOT enforcing their current discussion of having the town pay for it. So $2 million, that would be, if you did it directly on the tax rate, 1 year, it would be an assessment of $120 for every home in town assessed for $300,000. If you bonded it over 20 years, it'd be about $20 a year. Or actually, I'm sorry, $12 a year. So the total impact would be $240 for a house assessed at $300,000.
Thank you.
And real quick, I just want to, I know Councilor Spencer wanted to speak. Before you go, I just want to say your artwork has come along such a long way. Good job.
Good artwork.
Thank you. I'm particularly proud of it myself. I did just want to speak, and I'll try to be brief because I don't think I can talk for long without coughing. Councilor Borden summarized everything really well, and I just want to kind of say the same thing. At this point, I've been kind of going back and forth that I really At the end of the day, I find pros and cons to both approaches. There are safety issues, there are cost issues, there are all different issues to consider with both, and they come out frankly even. And so I was in the same place as Councilor Borden, that if this wasn't going to cost us any money, I'm not going to increase taxes, which is the biggest thing. I think it was Representative Nelson said it very well earlier during public forum. I am hearing finally from Derry residents on this issue, so thank you for finally speaking up, because that was really concerning me that I was not hearing from our actual constituents. But I hear much more often about taxes and financial constraints, and so if it does come down to the fact that we're looking at raising taxes to make this happen, then I'm hard pressed. And I also hard pressed to support the tunnel. I would love to support it if it's not going to. For me, that crosswalk has been a concern the whole time as well. And once I hear that it's there either way, again, there's not a reason for me to vote one way or the other. And I know that everybody thinks they have all the information, and I appreciate them bringing all the information that they have and their interpretations of things. But I feel at this point, given that, as Councilor Borden said, it was Tuesday that we started to hear about this potential that there could be a cost for us, that I'm not in a place to vote either right now. I feel that while I appreciate all the free legal counsel and legal advice from everybody, we need to hear from our actual counsel that is tasked with representing the town, to hear what our options are, what our council thinks we could or could not be on the hook for, before I could ever take a vote on this at this point.
Thank you, Councilor Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, just to be perfectly candid, I don't have a preference either way. I really don't care if it's the tunnel versus the switchback, personally. I think it's going to get used and people will be satisfied whatever is built. I'm not prepared to spend money for the taxpayers and invest money into this project, other than the $5 million that was told back in 2015, I believe, the previous council. Going back to that letter from the rail trail, that I'm kind of in that situation right there. Like, I don't have a preference either way. I think they'll both be beneficial. They both have their pros and cons to it. But I know in 2016, Keith Coda, who was a representative from the DOT at the time, who's no longer there, sat right there. And as a new council, newly elected, I had asked if there's any plans to have connectivity with the rail trail. And he said, sitting right there, he said, no, there is no plans to have connectivity to the rail trail crossing over North High Street. It's on the town. And that's where it was. And then fast forward to 2020, and then all this came up, and then a year ago or so, 2021, when this came further to where we are now. So it's kind of a gift to us, essentially, that the state is giving this to us. And I guess my concern is, if we continue to delay this, who's to say that DOT doesn't say, you know what, we're going to stop it right where it is, and we're going to do 4A, and the trail's not going to get done at all. That's a legitimate concern that I have. Not to say that can happen, but who says it can't? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I think there's a lot of factors. We're being told from the constituents, do the right thing. Well, there is no right thing. They're both right. They both have their pros. They both have their cons. So we've done our homework. We're not taking this lightly. And to be honest, I'm not sure this is under our purview. This is a DOT project that's passing through our backyard. But again, I understand the constituents have their concerns, and so it's kind of a catch-22, so to speak. But at this point, I'm not willing to spend $2 million or 1 point whatever million it is, if that's going to be the case. I think either one will work. We're not experts in this. We take everything at face value, what we hear, and they say there's 3 sides to everything, and we're trying to get all the information as best as we can and try to decipher that and try to do the right thing. Again, I don't believe one is wrong and one is right. I think it's just a matter of personal preference. I have heard from people who said that they don't want the tunnel for various reasons. I've talked to people who don't want the switchback for various reasons. But in the same vein, I've heard people who want one or the other. So again, it's a preference thing. So that's it for now.
Thank you. Councilor Flood, anything? No. Councilor Chertow.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've been talking about 4A for I don't know how long. It's got to be at least 25 years. But in 2015, Chairman Tom Carden got up and said the town will not spend any more money of taxpayers' money. Right. And therefore, we're giving the keys to the state. And I said, oh, kudos, good for Tom. He's gonna hand everything over to the state and let them take care of that. And then I recall many of us here, not all of us, but many of us here also promised the taxpayers here not one more penny. So when Mr. Carden says, oh, what's a couple, we've waited this long, it's this much cost now, who cares if it's a couple more million? That's not the promise that many people here have promised the taxpayers, okay? That's number one. Number two, and I'm going to be blunt, and I sometimes I can get myself in trouble, but I'm just going to say it because I don't know any other way around it or can sugarcoat it. 18 months ago, if Mr. Connors did not send that letter, you probably would have had a tunnel, and we wouldn't be here. But the fact is, he sent the letter.
Right.
So think about this: if you're the state and you're looking to save money, because that's what this whole project is considered the big dig of New Hampshire. Okay, and they're looking to locate money, so they come up with an alternate plan. Mr. Connors writes a letter saying, we're good with either plan. The state says, great, time to move on. 18 months later, we're saying, no, we don't like that plan? Think about that for a second. All right? That's just the cart, the horse has left the barn on that one, okay? Representative Pearson says that, what are we talking about? It's already approved, the tunnel's already approved. Then what are we talking about? Why do we need to vote? If he's right and he's saying that it's already approved, the tunnel, what are we doing? We don't even need the vote, correct? Because it's already done, right, Steve? Federally approved. Okay, so then why are we voting? Right. So hold on a second. It's my time to talk because we listened to over an hour for everybody else. Okay? Then I get an attorney's opinion, outside attorney's opinion that I didn't even ask for, which, let's be real, okay? Anyone can hire an attorney, they're gonna say whatever they want on whatever side. And then I get a letter from DOT saying, you change it, you pay. Well, I made a promise to the taxpayers that I will not spend one more penny, and I will not do it. Now, I've heard here from many people that said, sure, if the tunnel was free and there was no delay, that's sort of a no-brainer. And to be honest with you, I've heard that from many people. And I've always said to those same people who told me that, you're kidding yourself because nothing's free.
Right.
Okay, I spent 8 years on transportation at the State House, so I know nothing's free. I always knew there was a cost involved. So what I would like to do, since we've all talked, Mr. Chairman, and there's many different facts. I think Richard Tripp said it really well. It's either we're listening to CNN or Fox News because there's a lot of misinformation on both sides. I have a responsibility to the taxpayers. What I like to do is I would like to table this and bring this to our council, and just as you had mentioned, ask the questions. Is Derry on the hook for this? We need to ask those questions. We need to do our due diligence to our taxpayers and make sure we get it right, because if I'm forced to vote now, it's going to be a definite no. Right. Because I'm not rolling the dice and having the taxpayers pay. So that's where I stand. So I'm going to make a motion that we table this until we can get our attorneys to look at all of the DOT's report, the letter from the bike paths lawyer, and try to make heads or tails of this, because this is crazy.
So we have a motion to table with the goal of talking to our town attorney and asking more questions. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Foote. Discussion on that motion to table and talk to our attorneys.
as I mentioned, Mr. Chairman, I think it's the right thing to do. We represent the taxpayers here of all of Derry, and I think that's the most prudent thing for us to do. So.
I think we agree.
So, any other comments or questions on that motion to table and talk to the attorney? The only thing I would say is I would encourage, so we can be as efficient as possible. And no, I'm not going to go there.
Say it, finish it.
Please get your questions into myself, Councilor Spencer, and our town manager as soon as possible, if you have questions.
Mr. Chair, I would just, if we are going to be talking to the attorney, I would also like her to review the 2015 contract and that aspect of it. If the rail trail people decide to bring suit against the state, you know, we could technically, by the plain reading of it says we could be on the hook for that. So if I'm going to get sued, if I'm going to spend money either way, I'm going to spend money building the tunnel.
I got it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
One more thing I need to bring up, and I don't know if I'm accurate, but if someone correct me if I'm wrong. My belief is the Wyndham Trail was paid for not by the Wyndham taxpayers, it was done by federal dollars. Same with Londonderry. It's only the Derry Trail. No. Okay, so Wyndham.
85% private, 85% private.
Private funds.
Okay, so
fundraising, not taxpayer-funded dollars, correct? Okay. So, Mr. Chairman.
Are we going to table or not?
My point is Derry's rail trail has been paid mostly by taxpayer dollar.
Right.
Wyndham has not, Londonderry's has not. So when they're talking about this equity thing,
okay.
All right,
But on the motion, I mean, discussions on the motion.
Owns the trail, nobody else does.
Okay.
I understand that, and we also own the maintenance of it.
Let's keep it between us and not the audience.
Well, tell the audience not to yell out, please.
The questions that I'll be asking, and I would encourage you to ask questions, and I'll get these to you, Dave. But for the record, like what Neil just said, if the rail trail groups were to bring suit, are we on the hook?
No.
Analyzing our 2015 contract versus the email that we received recently from the DOT about that expense. Can they stop the trail for delays? And do we have to pay for the tunnel? Can crosswalks be removed?
And just one final question, because it really kind of irks me in the commissioner's letter. Who is the school of thought? You know, when you send a letter to a political body and you say, there's a school of thought that thinks we can charge you, and you don't define it, like, if he thinks he can charge us, that's fine.
Yeah.
If the governor thinks he can charge us, that's fine. If it's, you know, some political people up in Concord, that's fine too. But let's get that defined. State has lawyers, that's their lawyers.
Okay. I've rallied the questions. We have a call to move the vote. I will get those questions to you. Yep.
Is there a time on the table, Brian, or just a general table?
It's a table indefinite, so we get the answers from our attorneys, because I don't know how much time that's going to take.
Okay. On the motion, Councilor Cherichello.
Yes.
Councilor Spencer.
Yes.
Councilor Katsoukaris.
Yes.
Councilor Flood.
Yes.
Councilor Weatherby.
Yes.
Councilor Foote.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. The motion to table passes 7-0.
I was ready to vote. No.
All right, next up, we have the chairman's report with regards to exit 4A. Nope.
I think we might have covered that.
Let it go, baby. Let it go.
Can you imagine if we had to do that over?
Another hour and a half, and deja vu.
Oh, boy.
I know. Take a breath, honey.
We have the town administrator's report, and we have a presentation for the FY22.
Hey, shout out.
What?
Location committee?
That's me. I'm the one who requested this and brought it up, so.
Okay. Still under the chairman's report, I'd like to turn it over to Councilor Cherichello regarding the appointment of the election location committee.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I brought this up last month. Actually, I'll wait till the room clears out. Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Last month, I had brought the issue up on the election location, the polling places. We know that we had approved one of the polling places at Calvary.
Yep.
And I had mentioned that our town moderator and our town clerk do an outstanding job, because I sat there in the morning and got people right through within, I mean, it was minutes. People walked up, they checked in, we had the book, the process when we got inside was fantastic.
Correct.
The issue was the traffic and the location of that polling place. There's only one major road in. My biggest fear is if you don't think that the presidential primary, which is going to be interesting this year because of the state law that New Hampshire has, the Democratic Party wants to move the first in the nation, yet the state has a law that says we shall be first. So that's a moving target. And my concern is that I do not want to repeat the traffic issue because, and again, this is nobody's fault, because we couldn't foresee this. There were people that were turning around and not voting because they didn't want to stand in line, and that's not right.
Right.
I also mentioned that I feel that we used to have a couple of locations, one in West Derry, because in my particular district, and probably Aaron Spencer's district, in District 1, a lot of people are not traveling to East Derry to vote. And that's an opinion. I don't have solid facts on that, but sure, that's my opinion. And I think that it would benefit us to actually have 2 polling places. And I understand the fact that we had 1 polling place. It was convenient for us, meaning the town, to have 1 polling place, but we need to make it convenient for the voters, not us. And if it's going to take a little bit more work, and if we got to get more people, I think it's the right thing to do moving forward. Now, I understand that the timeline for the town election is just not going to happen because you got to split the ballots and all that stuff. So we can continue to have the town election at the one place, that's fine. But after that, because I'm thinking in 14 months, we're going to have that primary.
Yeah.
So we need to kind of move on that. I would like to be on this election committee with whoever else wants to serve. I know the town clerk would want to be on it, and the moderator. But I would like to be on that so I can let the voices of my district be heard.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. Any other comments?
Well, just a point of, clarification. It wasn't just a matter of convenience, Brian. I mean, the schools basically threw us out.
Well,
so we didn't have a location that would accept us. So I just, and I understand the pros and cons to both sides, and I'm fine with that. I just wanted to clarify that. I didn't want people to think we chose that location because it's easier for us. We didn't have anywhere else to go.
Yes, and COVID was an issue, but now that's kind of, it's still an issue, but it's beyond us, sort of. So I think we can move forward and ask the schools but you're right.
I would just add to that, if we are going, obviously the schools should be part of this discussion. If things were to change in the future, are they going to take the same stance that they took with us before?
A good point. I envision one of the schools, either Hood or West Runningbrook, on the east side, the west side, and keep Calvary if they'll have us, or Pinkerton, I guess.
Pinkerton, yeah.
But anyway, I think we can ask the schools.
Yep. And my only comments are prior to the last presidential election, we pulled off. And I use we loosely. Obviously it was our town moderator and town clerk and the rest of the staff, and our police and fire and everyone involved. But we pulled off one of the most successful elections in the state of New Hampshire. What led us to that moment was the collaboration and cooperation between Pinkerton, the schools, the police, fire, CERT, the town employees, the DPW, everyone involved. So we should emulate that process. I believe back then we had 3 counselors on that committee. We should do exactly what we did before, and I think we're safe to stick with the one polling place for this town election because the numbers are smaller, but we absolutely need to get it figured out prior to
Presidential.
any federal election. So, yeah, I mean, where we're at with things is, I think where we left off last time was Dave was going to reach out to each of the major players involved, the superintendent, the police and fire chief, as well as the, anybody else. So Dave's working on that schedule. He will keep us informed. He knows that.
So which councilors are on the committee? I'm sorry.
So Brian has put himself up, said he's interested. I believe Councilor Spencer is interested. Is there any other? Neil, that's a reason to stay.
That's okay.
Any other councilors interested? Councilor Foote?
I'm not, but I will.
All right. Well,
there you go. You get your 3.
Okay.
Cool.
Definitely don't want any part of it, but I'll do it.
Neil, what's next? What am I doing?
You can just read the agenda or something like that.
This little thing?
Town administrator report.
There we go. Let's try that again. Town administrator's report. We have an audit.
We're gonna flip it around a little bit to get things going on. Just a couple of comments is that we did conduct an auction of 2 properties last week, and which will result in a net gain to the town of about $225,000. The town has issued a permit for the Snowdeo event. We essentially follow the same process with the organizer that we follow with Derry After Dark. There will be off-site parking for virtually almost all the spectators. We'll have about 250 vehicles on the ice. The other 1,000 spectators will be shuttled in from a church. So they know what the requirements are, and we've been in communication with the private groups over there. They still require permission from some private homeowners to access the ice. That's not our call. That's between the organizers and the property owners. But from our perspective, they can work that out, and they have a permit to operate that event. We are currently working, or about to start working, with an attorney from Connecticut who specializes in law enforcement organization, liability and succession issues. He'll be working with me and Chief Fioli to develop a succession plan, and we hope to complete the process in May. And lastly, I wish Senator Birdsell was still here, because I just received calls and emails today from the offices of Congressman Pappas and Senator Shaheen. President Biden will be signing the federal budget on Friday, which includes $3.2 million to extend municipal sewer on Route 28 South from Berry Road to Ryan's Hill. That is it's about 3,600 feet of gravity and almost 2,000 feet of pressure sewer. It's an 80-20 match. And the reason I wish Senator Birdsell was here, she was instrumental in giving us more flexibility to spend the revenues from the water wheeling charges. And one of the council's goals was to accomplish this work and fund the local share from half of the water wheeling revenues, which we now can use thanks to Senator Birdsell's bill for economic development. So it looks like that plan's coming together. You're not going to see shovels in the ground for a while, because we still have to wait for the grant process to go through, and then we have to design it, and then we bid it and construct it. So I'm not even going to venture a guess, but it won't be soon. So. Second, we have 2 presentations tonight, if we can indulge the council and take them reverse order, because I think Mr. McPherson's presentation will be a little bit shorter than our auditors.
He told me before he didn't mind waiting to the end, but if you want to, yeah.
It's getting past his bedtime. He's got to get
It's already cold.
Come on up, Dave. Welcome,
Good
guys.
evening. This will be a little bit lighter than the past hour and a half. I hope.
Thank you.
No, I'm on. I'm on.
Okay.
We're good. Good evening. My name is David McPherson. I'm the Executive Director of the Alexander Eastman Foundation. And as many of you know, the Alexander Eastman Foundation has served our community since 1930. The foundation built the first hospital in Derry, which opened in 1935, and later in 1960, built the second Alexander Eastman Hospital on Birch Street. In 1983, the hospital was sold to its current owner, Hospital Corporation of America. With funds from the sale of the hospital, the foundation became a nonprofit charitable foundation which supports health and wellness programs and initiatives in the greater Derry community. The foundation has donated over $15 million to support community organizations and projects over these past years. The foundation is committed to supporting the development of a community center which serves all generations and socioeconomic groups from across the greater Derry community. We have been looking to develop new cross-organizational partnerships between other nonprofits in our area to better serve the community and to provide economics of scale for these organizations. Over the past summer, several local and regional nonprofit groups had contacted the town through the Economic Development Department, kudos to Bev, relative to searches for land and buildings to be considered for possible expansion of programs or services. As a result of many conversations and awareness of a Derry master plan from 2020, with the goal to study the need for a multi-generational community center. The groups decided to come together informally to look at opportunities for collaboration. The group invited Derry Parks and Recreation and the various schools who had already been collaborating with some of these groups to participate. Together, these organizations and departments saw merit in formalizing the committee and continuing the conversation relative not only to their strategic goals, but the goals of the town. And it was decided that the Alexander Eastman Foundation would facilitate the new multi-generational committee and retain the services of UNH graduate student Chase Eggleston to assist with information gathering and report production. And I'd like to introduce Chase. He wrote a survey that is currently up on the town website, and I'll let him talk to that.
Hello. So the survey I've put together reflects key questions that will assist the multi-generational committee to hone in on key elements of the feasibility study and to inform next steps for the group. The survey consists of 8 questions geared towards residents of Derry, including some optional demographic questions, which aid in us understanding the breakdown of those completing the survey. Also included are questions regarding the resources and services that could potentially be offered at a new multi-generational community center, as well as questions regarding the use of organizations in the greater Derry area, some of which are involved in the multi-generational committee. Filling out the survey will take no longer than 5 minutes for those who wish to take part, and no personal identifiers will be collected. I invite members of the community to visit the DerryCAM website, derrynewhampshire.org, and click on the link entitled Multi-Generational Survey, We Need Your Opinions, to complete the survey, which will be live through December 27th. Please also tell your friends and neighbors in the community to make sure to take part in the survey so that their opinions on the Senate will be heard. A follow-up survey will also be open for residents in surrounding communities in the greater Derry area to participate in January. So far, we've gotten over 330 responses, and the #1 most requested service in the new center would be teen mental health services.
Answer any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Do you have a Facebook post or social media post that people can share?
Yes, it's on the Alexander Eastman Facebook, and it's on Bringing Derry Together and just about every. It's out there.
Shareable that you can. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
No.
I may have missed it, but when is it due?
The Derry survey is through December 27th. There will be a second one going out for the greater Derry area in January.
Right.
Is this something that we could send out? I know you, years ago, started a network to all the major groups. Because, I mean, 330 people or 303 people, it's like 1% of our community. And obviously we want more. You want more. How can we do that? So
we're working on it.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you all. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Happy holidays.
It's your turn now.
Good evening.
Good evening. Want to start? Me to start, or?
Go.
This is Zachary Fentros from Melanson, our auditors, to review the annual financial report for FY22.
Great. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Does anyone need a copy to follow along unless they...
We all have copies.
Okay.
So as Mark said, my name is Zach Fentros. I was the audit manager in charge of the Town of Derry's June 30, 2022 audit. So tonight I'm going to go through the financial statements. I'm going to highlight some certain account balances and some of the larger trends. So we'll jump right on in. Before we do get in, I think it's important to kind of have a takeaway or conclusion from my presentation here tonight. And I think that the takeaway or the conclusion from my presentation should be that the town is in a good financial position. The town has positive operating results in the general fund, had positive turnbacks on your budgetary versus actual results. The town has a good unassigned fund balance. And finally, that there is no management letter. And I think at the end of my presentation, I'll get into a bit more what a no management letter really entails. So if I could, I'd like to turn to page 13, which is the first page of the independent auditor's report. So page 13 is the first page of the independent auditor's report. This is essentially what the town of Derry hired us to produce. The town of Derry received a clean opinion, which is the best opinion you can receive from an independent auditor, and it's the same opinion that the town has received in prior years. Next, I'm going to jump right into the number pages. So I'm going to have you jump to page 34. So tonight we're going to look at two balance sheets. And page 34 is the first balance sheet that we're going to look at. It is the statement of net position. The difference between the two balance sheets is one is a long-term financial view for the town of Derry, and one is a short-term financial view for the town of Derry. Page 34 and 35 is going to be that long-term financial view for the town of Derry. So you can see that there are three columns on this page. The first is your governmental activities, which is the consolidation of your general fund, your special revenue funds, your capital project funds, your capital reserve funds, your trust funds, and then the town's long-term assets and the town's long-term liabilities are included. In that second column is your business type activities. That comprises of your water and your sewer type proprietary funds. So if you'd like, you can see a breakdown of what makes up water versus sewer on pages 42 and 43. I don't want to go there now, but just letting you know that you can go there for a breakdown of the differences between water and sewer. And then that far right column is just a summation of your governmental activities and then your business type activities. And I have nothing that I want to bring to your attention on page 34. I'd actually like to turn the page and go right to page 35. So page 34 is all of your assets, and page 34 is all of your assets, and page 35 is your liabilities. And the first item I want to bring to your attention is under non-current liabilities. It's probably about halfway down the page. You have bonds and loans payable net of current portion. And that has a balance of $9,387,000. It's actually a decrease of about $772,000. And I'm going to talk about that in conjunction with the very next line item, which is your tax increment financing bonds payable net of current portion, which is a balance of $1,895,000. It's a decrease of about $215,000 from the prior year. Now, both of those decreases are due to the principal payments that the town made on their outstanding bonds in fiscal year 2022. The reason I wanted to bring this to your attention is a good financial indicator for a town is when his debt is paid off between 70 to 75% within the 10-year period. That's viewed favorably by your users of the financial statements, such as your bond rating agencies. So for your governmental activities, 88% is going to be paid off within 10 years. And for your business type activities, 93% will be paid off within 10 years. So that's a good financial position for the town of Derry to be in, and it's going to be viewed favorably by your users of the financial statements. Right below that, you have your net pension liability. And your net pension liability has a balance of $35,538,000. This is actually a large decrease from the prior. This is the biggest swing from 2021 to 2022. It's a decrease of about $15.2 million. Now, what this represents is the town of Derry's portion of the total unfunded liability for the New Hampshire retirement system. What is important to note about this liability, it's actually presented as of June 30, 2021. So these financial statements are as of June 30, 2022, but this individual liability is actually being presented as of June 30, 2021. That's allowable per financial reporting. And the reason that it's important to note that it's as of June 30, 2021 is primarily due to the reason for the decrease in that liability. And the reason for the decrease in that liability is due to the investment results for the New Hampshire retirement system for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2021. Those investment results for the entire system came in about $2 billion greater than what the system had anticipated for fiscal year 2021, which led to about a $16.7 million benefit for the town of Derry. So that's the primary reason you see that big decrease in that number, is because those investment results were greater than what was anticipated by the New Hampshire retirement system. Next, I'm going to adjourn to page 38. And page 38 is the second balance sheet. There's only one page with this balance sheet. As you can see, there are three columns here. You have your general fund, which is the consolidation of your general fund, your capital reserve funds, and your TIF funds. You have your non-major funds, which is your special revenue funds, your capital project funds, and your trust funds. And then that far right column, your total governmental funds, is this a summation of your general fund plus your non-major governmental funds. And the first item I want to bring to your attention here is when I take a step back, I want to focus just on the general fund column. So that's where I want to pay close attention to for this presentation here tonight. The first number I want to bring to your attention is actually three numbers from the top. It's your tax receivable. It's a balance of $7,748,000. What's important to note and why I'm bringing this number to your attention is the town does a very good job of leaning your receivables in a timely manner. So of this receivable balance, it's comprised of either current year levy or it's comprised of tax liens. So the town liens those receivables in a timely manner to protect those receivables, to ensure that the town will receive those receivables at some point in time in the future. The next line item I want to bring to your attention is actually three numbers from the bottom. So we'll go from the top all the way down to the bottom, and it's your unassigned fund balance. And your unassigned fund balance is $10,151,000. What's important to note about this is the New Hampshire Government Finance Officers Association likes to see this figure at 17% of your general fund expenditures, which is essentially 2 months. And as of June 30, 2022, taking your unassigned fund balance, comparing it to your general fund expenditures, is actually about 23.8%. So again, that's going to be viewed favorably by your users of the financial statements to have a healthy unassigned fund balance. Next, if we could turn to page 89. Page 89 is your general fund budgetary versus actual results. There's 4 columns here. You have your original budget, you have your final budget, and then you have your actual amounts, which is the actual revenues or the actual expenditures. And then that far right column, which is where I'd like to pay close attention, is your favorable or unfavorable variance when comparing the final budget to the actual revenues or the actual expenditures. Maybe about a third of the way down the page, you're going to see total revenues. And that had a favorable variance again on that far right column of $1,568,000. These are the amount of revenues that came in greater than what the town anticipated. Maybe about 2/3 of the way down the page, you're going to see total expenditures. And again, in that far right column, you'll see that the total expenditures had a favorable variance of $1,238,000. This represents the amount of expenditures that came in less than what the town had budgeted. So that again, in that far right column, the last number there, the total budgetary excess, is $2,288,000. This represents the amount of revenues that came in greater than what was anticipated, and the amount of expenditures that came in less than anticipated. This can be viewed essentially as what the town beat the budget by. So again, that's going to be viewed favorably by users of the financial statements to say that you had positive turnbacks on your budgetary versus actual results. Now that's everything I wanted to bring to your attention tonight. So again, in conclusion, the town is in a good financial position. You had positive operating results for your general fund. You had turnbacks on your budgetary versus actual. And the general fund has a good, strong, unassigned fund balance. And as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation that there is no management letter. So in addition to proving out the numbers in the financial statements, we also look at the town's internal controls to make sure that your assets are being appropriately safeguarded. And if we had any recommendations for improvement on those internal controls, we would issue a formal management letter. Melanson clients, and we do a lot of municipalities here in New Hampshire and in the Commonwealth, about 10 to 15% of our clients don't receive a management letter. So to not receive a management letter is in high esteem and in good company. And that really speaks to what Mark and Dave do in the seriousness that they take when it comes to internal controls, and make sure that not only are they operating effectively, but they're being properly instituted. So kudos to them for that. Any questions, concerns, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have one quick question. So should we keep Mark or not?
It's a management decision.
Well, do we keep Dave?
Does Dave want to stay? Any other comments, questions?
I just, kind of goes without saying, I just really want to give kudos to both Mark and Dave and the entire finance department, and honestly, all the staff. I know it's a team effort, and, it's I hate to say it, it's great to have a boring audit report. Everything's happy, and it just says we're doing a great job. So kudos to everyone.
Thank you.
And Mark and Dave, thank you to you and staff for making us look good. So, thank you.
And then we have had letters in the past, correct? So this is...
Since I have been the manager in charge of the audit, they have not had a management letter. That's correct, Mark, right? Yeah. So I've been, I think, 4 years. Yes. This is my 4th year, and I haven't had a management letter in those 4 years. I could certainly look back and speak to you.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought we had, and either way, I'm just pointing out a good job.
You did before Dave.
Yeah.
Well, Mark's time.
Right. So, thank you.
If I could, Mr. Chair, I just want to thank Mark and his entire team. This audit process is not an easy undertaking. And this is an annual comprehensive financial report. Most financial statements for towns, 50 to 60 pages, this is about 140. So what I like to say, this is financial statements on steroids. So they did a very good job of being very well prepared for us and ready for us when we came in. So I want to thank them for all their hard work involved in this process. It is not an easy undertaking.
We agree, and we are grateful for Dave's leadership and Mark and the rest of the staff who get it done day to day. So thank you, everyone.
Good job.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Yep, you too.
Good stuff.
All right. So, Dave, you provided us with the, where is it? Non-public now before we adjourn. All right, so prior to adjourning the meeting, we need to enter a non-public session pursuant to RSA 91-A:3, 2D. Motion to enter into non-public pursuant to RSA 91-A:3, 2D. Consideration of the acquisition, sale, or lease of a real or personal property which, if discussed in public, would likely benefit a party or parties whose interests are adversely to those of the general community.
Second.
So I made that motion, Councillor Borden, seconded by Councillor Weatherby. Any discussion? Councillor Cherichello?
Yes.
Councillor Spencer?
Yes.
Councillor Katsoukaris? Councillor Flood?
Yes.
Councillor Weatherby?
Yes.
Councillor Foote?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. All right, so let's go.
Let's go.